Welcome to the Purpose Focused Advisor, a podcast for financial planners, advisors, and RIAs looking to get the most out of yourself and your business. Join Rob Brown and Phil Calandra as they walk you through a journey that will allow you to take action in your business and your life so you can be the best that you can possibly be. Now here are your hosts, Rob and Phil.
Welcome back. It's time once again for the Purpose Focused Advisor. Rob Brown here. Glad to be with you this week. And I am super excited to have as my guest Matthew Gray of Larson Wealth Management. Matthew is a financial planner, and he is a special guy. I really enjoyed getting to know him during our pre-call interview because he has some interesting perspectives on the industry as a newer to the industry financial planner. Some people call it NextGen planners. I know I called somebody a newer planner a few weeks ago, and they said, well, gosh, I've been at this a long time. When will I stop being new? But Matthew's been at this a handful of years. He's up in Harrisonburg, Virginia, so I guess somewhat unique podcast this week, and both the host and the guest are in the same state. But Matthew, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Rob. Really glad to be on here. Enjoy the content that you guys create, and happy to contribute to the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So let's dive right in, Matthew. Give me a little bit of a background on what brought you into the wealth management space as a young man straight out of college.
It is an interesting story, Rob. I've always been interested in money and problem solving around money. And I liked when I was in high school helping friends kind of understand how money worked. But I actually went to college for sports management because I'm a really big sports geek. But figured out that wasn't for me pretty quickly, and then went to professors, said, hey, what you know me, you know what I'm good at. What do you think I would enjoy doing? And they gave me a couple of different options. Finance was one. I heard about financial planning in a class, just fell in love with the idea, and just started in the industry straight out of college as someone who didn't really know anything about it, but loved the idea of having a career that was both fulfilling and helping people with something important, but also something I could make a good living at and help raise my family with.
So what is it about that helping people? Because, some people might suggest that that's just a head fake, that we say that we like helping people in the financial planning business just because it can be a very lucrative business, especially at the beginning parts of a career.
Yeah, for me, the fulfillment part actually comes first. I was actually talking with some folks in a book group I was a part of this morning about the idea of our generation, my younger generation. We found a lot of value in fulfillment, and yeah, we want to get paid. Yeah, we want to make a good living, but I wouldn't be happy in a career where I'm making a lot of money and not seeing the results of helping people and how I'm impacting people. And you see that in finance. Like, you could go to institutional banking. There were a lot of different career paths that my classmates took that made more money right off the gate and were more of a sure bet. And not to say that those industries don't impact people. They do. It's just much more indirect. And so for me, it's important to see the conversations that I have, what change do they lead to in my clients' lives, and how can I see myself bettering the people around me through the work that I do.
Yeah, and that is true. One great thing about being in the financial planning space is that when you watch somebody take your advice, you point them in the direction, they follow that advice, you see things happening. So yes, I'm having the impact, the purpose behind what I'm doing or what I specifically suggested for that client is making a difference. And it's making a difference now, but it'll also make a difference long into the future. So let's just dig up one step further. You talked about how you got, why you got where you are, but how did you get there? There aren't in the world that we live in today. I feel like there's a bit of a disconnect between the more senior advisors who want to bring younger people on their team and those younger advisors, it's like there isn't always a meeting of the minds. There are different expectations, and I think your process in working through that with your senior partner has made a difference in that.
Yeah. Yeah. The short answer is I got lucky. And that's one of the problems that I have with the industry. And I hope kind of telling the longer story highlights that. But it does seem to feel like the people who get started at a young age and aren't later age career changers do have to get lucky in some way. So right out of college, I knew I wanted to live in Harrisonburg because my wife is from here. I love the area. So I just started calling, writing letters, emailing every financial advisor in pretty much in the Harrisonburg area. And I didn't get responses from most of them. A few of them gave me, the time of day to call and kind of talk about it. But everybody told me, go get a sales job, go work for a wirehouse, and, get your feet wet, prospect your natural market. And that wasn't something that was easy for me to do. My personality doesn't lend itself to that. I'm kind of an introvert by nature. And I didn't have a natural market in Harrisonburg. I was moving to the area. But I did find through my wife, she was a family friend with a guy who runs a solo shop. And so I ended up interning with him unpaid over a summer, got my licenses, knocked those out while I was still working full time in retail. And then I just started with him, kind of the eat what you kill mindset of door knocking. He was an old Ed Jones guy. So door knocking was the way to go from his perspective. And it was really slow going. And it didn't take long to realize this isn't going to work. It's going to take years for me doing this while working full time to pay my bills to really build up a sustainable client base. And so I ended up leaving that advisor and just reached back out to a couple different advisors I talked to previously. And that's when I reconnected with Dave. And what was unique about Larson Wealth Management is it was a pretty small firm. It was just him and one other advisor at the time, but he's really wanting to build a team model. And so and he had just essentially started this with the other advisor. So it wasn't something he'd been doing for a long time, but his process was, let's bring you in, you're licensed, you'll essentially be my shadow for a couple of years, learn the business, and then we'll start you prospecting, we'll start handing off, maybe some select clients to you as you learn, but we're not going to put you in a sales role right away because it's hard to sell what you don't understand and what you haven't learned yet. And so that's been a really great process to go through. I've learned so much through this model, and I think it is a great way to try to get young, new talent into the industry.
Yeah, I love that. And I hope not only that the newer NextGen advisors are listening to this, but also you old guys out there. You don't have to start people the way that you started. Just because that was what got you going doesn't mean it's the same today. Just because you were a good door knocker doesn't mean that next person you bring on is going to be successful door knocking if you need to do that at all. Really think that through. I see that over and over again. I can actually remember a story or a situation where I helped train a rookie advisor, a new to the business advisor for a senior manager who grew up in the industry as a door knocker. During the training, we built a whole plan for this rookie advisor to get started in the industry. It didn't include door knocking, but as soon as the rookie advisor goes through the training, his senior guy put him through, he goes back to his office, and the first thing the senior advisor says, throw that plan away. You're going to door knock. I know I'm exaggerating the point, but you really have to think about that if you're going to create the trust and the opportunity as a senior advisor to bring somebody in, understand what their skills are, what they're good at. Give them time to learn the industry. Be a mentor. It doesn't have to be immediate ROI, because I am sure, and Matthew, I bet you agree with this, that the ROI that Dave's going to get by having you as part of the team long term far surpasses what he may have gotten short term or even in the first couple of years.
Absolutely. And it's funny to me because I hear this talked about a lot in the industry. We focus on when we bring a new advisor in or an advisor from another firm, we're focused on the ROI right away. And there'll be terms like, well, we're going to lose money on you for the first, X number of years or whatever. But in other industries, even sales industries, like the idea is you're paying someone a salary, you're investing in them for the long term because they're providing a service, right? They're providing, some sort of benefit you're going to reap rewards from later. And I think as an industry, because especially we've kind of grown up in this idea of commission, eat what you kill, we lose sight of, hey, the long-term investment really pays off if you do this the right way.
Yeah. And it's wasted money, wasted time when you force the process and you have to go back and start all over again, or not at all, and then you don't really get what you're looking for in bringing the NextGen advisor on to be a future partner, to take on some of the client load that as an older advisor you're no longer able to handle because you've grown to a point where you just can't give the time and attention to the clients that you would like to. So Matthew, talk a little bit about how you would create a team. So if you're kind of drawing it up on you're a sports geek. Imagine the whiteboard. You're putting the formation of the team on the whiteboard. What does that play look like?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of key components that you have to get right for a healthy, functional team environment. And there's three that come to mind right off the bat. The first one is roles and responsibilities. Like you have to have clearly defined who's doing what. Because, as financial planners, we touch a lot of different things. We do client meetings, phone calls, emails, all the different areas we touch on, insurance, estate planning. You really need to define who's doing what, not just internally, but externally for clients. One piece of feedback that's been really valuable from clients early on when we started doing this is they felt like they weren't always sure who to talk to for what. If I need advice, do I go to the advisor? Do I go to the paraplanner? If I need to move money or do some sort of transaction, who's my first contact? So it's also important from the client's perspective to have identified for them what the roles are, what the responsibilities are. The second is you got to have clear communication. Teams are only as good as the communication back and forth and how well we share information. And then I think the last one would be you have to have the right incentives in place. Like a team works great, but if your incentive structure isn't built to actually incentivize team play and team interaction and the betterment of the actual firm and all the clients in the firm, you start to have culture clash where you say you're a team, you're going to do all these things, but if the incentives don't line up, you can have some divergence there. So those three things I think are the most important. There's plenty of other things that you can get into.
Yeah, I love that. And you could be teaching a class at Harvard Business School with that. That is so core. But as I know I'm picking on older advisors, senior advisors in this first part of the podcast, but as obvious to me, and I think maybe to you, especially now that you've been part of a successful young career, that understanding roles, communicating well, having a clear plan for communication just seem like obvious keys to success. But because many advisors started in the business at a time when they weren't trying to be business owners, they were just trying to be advisors. So they didn't start by putting business rules in place for themselves. And it may have just been themselves or themselves and one other person. When they start adding that other person, they say, well, you've got to define the roles. And they go, well, we'll just figure it out. Well, that can work, but it doesn't work as well as defining something first working your way towards that. And if it needs to be altered or changed or redefined, you can do that. Communication, just what do we have on our plates to do today, this quarter, this year, so that we're all marching to the same tune? And then how do you get paid in the end? Because that's one of the other great conflicts that can happen between the newer advisor and the junior, or the newer advisor and the older advisor, is compensation expectations. The old guys always think the young guys aren't worth, and I'm saying guys, it could be gals. I apologize for that, but the older advisors think that the newer advisors shouldn't earn as much as they're earning, and then the younger advisors think, you're making a ton of money. Why can't I get up to your level faster? And there has to be a balance. There has to be a track, because you are creating a business and you're creating a career. And I think that's, in large part what's happening, sounds like so successfully at your firm, that Dave's gone from just being an advisor out there doing his own thing to building a team, building a firm, a business. And that's a whole different thing than where he started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's the tricky part too. Like, it's one thing to want to build that. It's another thing to change the mindset from advisor to owner, especially when it comes to things like defining roles, when you just let it figure out and let it happen before, or even compensation. Like, how do you incentivize the younger advisors to go out, prospect, bring in new business, while also not siloing everybody off into their own books, essentially.
Right. Yeah. Because I think the firms that will succeed going further, who are building teams, aren't building silos of producers with different rep numbers. They're working together as a team. Sure, each lead advisor may be assigned to specific clients to take care of, but that's only part of the compensation. That's kind of the servicing aspect of the compensation. So let's transition this conversation a little further, but probably not too far off the path, because when we spoke a few weeks ago, Matthew, one of the things that you were telling me is that some of the success that you're having in bringing in new clients is the clients of advisors who are aging out, who haven't done a good job in their firms, bringing somebody else in to take care of clients, even though they may be well into their 60s and 70s. Talk a little bit about what you're discovering, kind of in the seat as the new business guy, bringing in new business and finding these new relationships.
Yeah, I will say it's not something we purposefully set out to do. For any older advisors out there, we're not marketing ourselves as coming after, the advisors who
Sure.
may be a little bit longer in the tooth. It's just something that we've seen happen naturally. And the product of that, I think it's a couple different things, what's causing it. One is we're very young as a group. I'm 27. Dave's the oldest. He's in his mid 40s. And what we've seen is clients coming to us because they see some sort of gap, some sort of distance between the service they're getting with their current advisor and the service they want to be getting. And the trend that we've seen with that is the advisors who they're with, that they're not getting the service that they want, they're usually older. A lot of them are solo shops. And they've been doing the same thing for 20, 30, 40 years, maybe with a bent towards investment management and maybe a little bit less. Some of them do some planning, but a little bit less focused potentially on full comprehensive financial planning, as we would call it. And then the clients also look ahead and they say, my advisor's around my age, maybe I'm retirement age, mid 60s, my advisor's the same age. And they're working by themselves. How do I know I'm going to be taken care of for the next 20, 30 years when my advisor could be retiring in the next 5 to 10 years? And what does that look like? Where do I go from there? And the uncertainty of, I'm going through one of the most uncertain, stressful times of life. in this transition, and I feel less certain about the advice I'm going to be getting and the service I'm going to be getting. And so clients come to us, they see the service they want, they see younger advisors, and where I would have thought that our lack of experience would potentially be off-putting, what we see a lot of clients saying is, we see you know enough to help us, and we like the fact that we know you're going to be here.
Yeah. And I just think that's so important because, again, I admit freely that I'm intentionally being a little bit of a devil's advocate to some of the older advisors out there who may be stubborn in building teams and bringing on younger advisors. But it's not just building a team for team's sake or building a team so that you can, grow your practice exponentially. It's also building a team to make sure that you have a system in place, a team in place that can help those clients that you've been working with for years beyond your years and really leave a legacy to those clients. I don't know. I don't want to get into too many of the details of it, but Matthew, you were telling me the story of one client in particular that realized that as much as they enjoyed working with their advisor and didn't want to leave, just the fact that you actually paid attention to their taxes said, hey, we've got to make a change because we've been missing something all along. You want to maybe share a little bit about that and how that really kind of builds into this theme of really thinking about how to keep clients long-term, whether you're a new guy or an old guy.
Yeah, the story of that couple is actually a pretty great example of what we've seen, where they've been with their advisor for a decade or two, really like the guy, they go to church together, great relationship. But when they first came to meet with us through a referral of an existing client, they had this list of questions, and it was taxes, it was Social Security, it was income planning, all these different things. And we even when we got to the end of going through the questions, we asked, like, so have you talked with your advisor about this? Has he given you thoughts? And the answer was very telling, which was that we've never had a conversation about these items with our advisor, and we're not sure he's able to help us with this. Now, could he have? I don't know. I mean, the fact that they never went, I think, bellies the point that they didn't have the confidence that they could even go have that conversation, even though they had a great relationship and the returns on their portfolio had been fantastic, to be honest. And we've seen that time and time again, where when it comes down to it, people want advice, and the advice isn't just related to investments. They want a comprehensive picture of someone to be able to help them through how all these things work together. Because most of the clients, they have a CPA, they have an attorney, but everybody just deals with their silo or their department. And what clients tell us when they're first coming on, or when we ask for feedback later, is what they appreciate is having someone to go to that touches on everything and can help them with an overall perspective on what decisions to make.
So I've got a couple of follow-up questions there. First, how do you communicate that to the client or the prospect when they're coming in, the comprehensive nature of what you're doing? Because, if they've been treated one way by another advisor who may even use the term, I do financial planning or comprehensive financial planning, but is not doing the tax stuff or the estate stuff, how do you make sure that they see what is different with you and your process, the value that you bring at Larson Wealth?
Part of it's indirect in just the questions that we ask. So for each new client, when we have the initial consult, we've got a questionnaire that we'll work our way through that asks questions about what real estate do they own, what do they pay in taxes, what's their estate plan, what's their life insurance. So they start to get an idea just from the conversation we're starting about all the different things we're touching on. And you can start to see light bulbs going off of, oh, we've never thought about this before, we've never talked with our advisor. And then we also have a stated, like, direct process. We've created some documents. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dan Allison and his feedback marketing group, Rob.
I'm not. I've heard Dan's name, but I'm not familiar with his work.
we've followed a lot of what he's done, and part of what he coaches on is the idea of having actual documents that show all the services that you offer. And we do this with prospective clients, but we also do this with clients that we've been with for a long time. We show them this document. We said, hey, here's all the areas we cover in general on one page.
Yeah.
We help you, and we've talked about these specific areas. These other areas you may never need help in, or you may need help with at some time in the future. But what we want to make sure we do, and what our responsibility is, to make sure you're educated on all the services that we can help you or anyone that you know and care about with, so that if you have needs or they have needs in these areas, you know who you can go to.
Yeah, that's awesome. In the coaching work that I do, one of the things I do with my clients is make sure we develop what we call a signature solution, and it's how our clients take their clients on a roadmap from kind of where they are at the beginning of the relationship to where they want to be out into the future, and the client can then visually see there's something different about this advisor because there's a path, there's a framework. And I have a couple of clients that use an old document, I forget who created it, years ago, called the 50 Benefits of Working with an Advisor. And it's just a list of 50 things that an advisor can do, and they've adjusted it for their practices. But to make sure your clients know what you can do, even if you don't do it with them now, is vitally important. Because kind of the second question that I had coming out of the story that you told about the new client that you brought in is maybe it's not as much a question as it is an observation. I talk to advisors all the time who say, I just lost this client, and they left because they wanted to do X, Y, Z, and that's what the other advisor is going to be doing with them. I could have done that for them if they just would have told me that they wanted to do that. Isn't that kind of a backwards way of thinking from the advisor's perspective?
It really is, because as you see in the story I told, you can't afford to wait for the client to ask if you help with someone. Because what usually happens is either they feel intimidated or they just don't think about asking you. And then they have a friend or a family member who says, well, my advisor helps me with this. And then their interest is piqued. They go talk with that advisor. They get sold on that process or that level of service. And oftentimes they don't even come ask you, what you do. And so that's one thing we've taken on as a team is it's our responsibility to educate clients, not only because it's, good for the firm, but also it is in their best interest so that they know that we can provide these things to, any significant need that they may have.
Yeah, I love that. And the other thing that you said that is vitally important there is that you take the documents that you're creating that show what you do, and you don't just reserve them for potential clients. You make sure that your current clients see them too. With our signature solution that we create for some of our clients, we suggest that you take it into every meeting. You don't have to go through the 3 levels and the 9 steps every time, but when it's there, it's planting that seed in the client's head that we may be here to talk about a reallocation of our portfolio, but that's not the only thing that's on the roadmap, and I think that's vitally important.
Right. And it's not just about client retention too. It actually becomes the main engine that drives the referral process, because when you're in front of clients reminding them of all that you do and can do for them, it keeps top of mind the things that you do. And so when they are talking to a friend or a coworker and those things come up, what we see then is the client says, hey, my advisor may not have helped me with that, or maybe they have, but I know they could help you. You should go talk to them.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful, and it's kind of interesting just to think about that you can do something, you can create a document, a roadmap, a pathway, that you design it because you want it for one purpose, to help educate that new person coming in, but then it becomes an anchor for helping clients stay with you, for attracting referrals, and for just being more confident about the work that you do and how you help your clients, achieve their most important goals. So as we begin to land the plane, Matthew, I want to go back to our original topic, because I neglected to ask you, if you were in a position to bring in a new advisor, how would you do it? What would your process be for helping someone who has the aptitude and the things that you have that make you a good advisor? What would you say to them to attract them to join your firm?
That's a great question. I think the first thing would be the idea of mentoring them and apprenticing them. Hey, I'm going to teach you, and we're going to teach you as a firm how to become an advisor. You're not going to sell anything right away. You're not going to have the pressure of leading client relationships. You're going to sit and learn, and you'll have, roles to do. You'll have responsibilities, but we really want to focus on developing you for the first several years to really get to a solid base, to the point that you're naturally able to sell because of your knowledge, because of your expertise. And there is skill that goes along with producing. But what I saw in myself was, once I got this established base, it was a lot easier to go out and talk to prospective clients and talk about how I could help them. And then the other pieces to it are, you want to create a culture that makes people excited about working as a team. You want to create a culture that makes people excited about being a part of that team. And that means focusing everything from communication, compensation, to, we want to be the tide that lifts all boats. We're not out here to build books. We're not out here to build individual silos or rep codes. We're here to build something as a team. And as long as you want to be a part of that, we're going to try to make it the most wonderful experience through pay, culture, benefits, etc., that you want to be here and you don't want to be anywhere else. And that would probably include like some form of ownership, buy-in, that type of thing, to get people seeing the results of the whole firm growing.
Sure.
But tying all those things together to create a place where people are excited to work, people feel like they're a part of the team, and the whole focus is on just building the firm together.
Yeah, that's awesome, because the best teams do buy into a culture, a framework, a purpose, a place that they're going together. They see and they want opportunities to advance personally, but a rising tide raises all boats, right? So if you're working together in that way, everybody grows and excels together, and you can just get better and better at what you do and build a stronger and stronger firm. Well, Matthew, this conversation has been awesome. I've got to tell you, I just admire your quiet confidence. As you can tell, I can be a little bit of an excitable guy, but I can see that quiet confidence that you have in being very serious about building a career and taking care of your clients and being part of a team and being a real representative to the industry of what a next-gen advisor should be. So I want to congratulate you on that, because I see something special about you, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you being on the podcast.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that, and for all the ways I can point out how the industry can be better and what we can do to improve. I do love this industry. It's an amazing opportunity, not only for fulfillment and for financial reasons, but it's a great way to impact your community, to have a great lifestyle, and I just love giving back wherever I can.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. So to our audience, thank you for listening. We will see you next week. And remember, we're rooting for your success. Take care. All right.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Purpose Focused Advisor. If you want to learn more, head over to our website, truestfancoaching.com. There you'll learn all about becoming a purpose-focused advisor. You'll also find today's show notes and links to the other gifts and resources we talked about during the episode. Again, thanks for listening, and remember, we're rooting for your success.